You might think you're seeing a Trump rally or a turning point event in a deep red state, but you're not. This is Portland, the heart of Antifistan. Patriots have taken over the streets. While mass left-wing extremists expected Americans to cower and hide, something incredible has happened instead. And what you're about to see will inspire you and restore your faith that the good guys are indeed winning like never before. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you make sense of the madness as the far left desperately tries to stop the unstoppable rise of a new conservative. For half a decade, this left radicals known as Antifa thought they owned the streets of Portland. For half a decade, this urban hellhole has been America's most shameful example of what happens when radical left-wing terrorists are allowed to run wild. Antifa militants have attacked federal officers, they've assaulted conservative journalists like Nick Sorter, and they've turned once beautiful neighborhoods into third world war zones. Business owners have testified that they've been held at gunpoint, their employers terrorized, their livelihoods destroyed, all while local officials look the other way. Okay. But then...
So I wanted to just give you a little update on what Portland looked like today. I wanted you to see what Portland looked like before we got a lot of insurgents of patriots there today. So that was something that I didn't see on my bingo card coming, that we would get a convergence of patriots up there to support what the ICE officers, as well as make their presence known in front of the ICE detention center as well. So that's a little aside from what we're going to get into today, but I just wanted to start with some good news. I loved that huge poster that they had of Charlie with the blue background, the cross and Charlie. I thought that was beautiful. So something different is happening now. Patriots are going out and saying, you know what? You want to be creeps on the streets? We'll come and we'll bring Charlie and the cross and Jesus with us.
For you.
Exactly. So look up. I don't want to be a bearer of bad news, but I think that things are going to get worse before they get better.
They usually do.
And this is going to be something where you're going to have to listen intently. I know that TikTok brain is real. I know that the machine has wanted people to not be able to concentrate, because if you can't concentrate, you can't learn. You're going to need to concentrate for what you're going to listen to. Batya Ungar Sargon is a lady that I've listened to since probably 2021, 2022. She is brilliant. Her in the 2010s, before 2010, she called herself a liberal. She voted Democrat. She was liberal. Then she went away from that whole I'm a liberal to I'm a leftist populist. Now remember, I'm a right-wing populist. So where do we meet? We meet on that populist nationalist page. So you're going to hear her opening monologue that's going to be so packed, that's going to help you understand what's going on, what all took place in this Middle East peace deal that you don't understand because nobody tells you. But she has boiled it down so brilliantly. And then after that, she brings Steve Bannon on, who hits a couple more nails. So I'm going to have Miranda, anytime she has a thought or a question, I'm going to have her pop on and ask a question and I can clarify, or I'll stop and be able to clarify as well. Side note, she now considers herself a Make America Great Again. She is an America First. She voted for Donald J. Trump.
Wow.
And that happened because Steve Bannon would have her on the War Room. That's where I got to first know her, back in 2022, because she was a leftist populist. And remember, he is a populist nationalist. He doesn't care what the other stuff is. If he can agree, if you guys can come to an agreement, let's talk, because I'm going to learn from you. He wants to learn. So as he learned from Batya learned from him, and then boom, became a Trump supporter because it made sense to her. So that's her background. Listen to her. She's breaking this down.
Welcome to Batya on News Nation. I'm Batya, and we begin with what we learned about America this week. On Friday, the Nobel Committee in Oslo did what everyone expected them to do. They refused to award Donald Trump the Nobel Peace Prize. It was, as my people would call it, a shanda, an absolute disgrace. The prize was announced just 36 hours after the president secured a peace deal to release all of the remaining hostages in Hamas captivity in Gaza. It was an astonishing feat, celebrated both in the streets of Gaza and in the streets of Tel Aviv and beyond.
Blessed be the peacemakers.
God bless you, Mr. President. God bless America.
Thank you very much. You just take care of yourselves. The hostages will come back. They're all coming back on Monday.
We'll make Israel great again.
Just consider for a minute what it takes to end a war and to have both sides hail you as a hero. Consider the resistance Trump had to overcome on both sides. From Israel's side, you had Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has resisted calls to end the war since it began, at times even calls from the majority of Israelis. He was put in the unenviable position of navigating the dual imperatives of the war, bringing back the hostages on.
So one of the things I didn't realize is that Israel no longer wants Bibi.
No, they have not wanted Bibi for 2 years.
So what? I don't like Bibi either, but what about Bibi do they not like?
His approval rating is in the single digits. They have wanted him out for quite some time because all he does is perpetuate war. All he does is want to take on everybody in the Middle East and tell us we're going to do it with him. And the Israeli people say, no, we are peace lovers. We are not warmongers. He is a warmonger. They know he's a warmonger. They want him out. This shows you, if anybody wants to say that Trump is at the beck and call of Bibi, you need to hear what's going to happen here and what it took for this peace deal. When Bibi came in the side door with no pomp and circumstance, remember I told you about that. He had to make a call. Remember, he shot missiles into Qatar, where, of course, no love lost there, terrorism everywhere, whatever. But still, he should not have done that. In order for Qatar to come on now when we needed them, they needed an apology from Bibi for doing that.
Who I can only assume is a very proud man.
Oh, he was not going to do it. But I watched Bibi get on a phone sitting right next to Trump in the Oval when Oval said, call now and apologize. So who's in charge?
Not Bibi.
No, listen very closely. You're going to hear Steve Bannon say, not in the room, not in the deal. Israel, Bibi did not have a place at the table for this deal, because please listen closely. She breaks down exactly how this deal went. And when I say that Trump is shattering all of the way that the world was before with the globalists, that it gets broken down for you here in a good way. For me, how I listen to things is I say in my head what she says. So I'm listening so intently that I'm repeating in my head every word that she says, and then it sinks in. So maybe that'll that'll help you for listening, because this is going to be a lot for you to take in. But we needed to jump into geopolitics for you to understand, because the next video that we do is going to be another one that's going to hammer this home as well. And then the next one after that, you're going to be hearing the same things from many different sources. That's the way that I do things, because if I hear something from one person that breaks it down, nope, not until I get it confirmed. Then I confirm it, then I confirm it again. All of them were so good that I thought, this is the teaching that needs to come to you, so you get a grasp of the landscape, and then things don't look so scary. You can start seeing things for yourself after that.
On the one hand, and putting an end to Hamas on the other. And these were always in conflict with each other, a horrific Sophie's choice. Netanyahu seemed to have chosen finishing Hamas over rescuing hostages. It took President Trump, who together with First Lady Melania was deeply moved by the plight of the hostage families, to tell Netanyahu in no uncertain terms that the time had come to choose the hostages and to end the war. And this truly was no easy feat. Netanyahu has for decades outmaneuvered American presidents, resisting their pressure and enraging them in the process. But Trump had two advantages. His own popularity in Israel no doubt made Netanyahu hesitant to cross him. And Trump also knew that the Israeli people were ready for the war to be over. 2/3 of Israelis, the highest number since the war began, want it to end. Moreover, Trump has been bothered by Israel's loss of support, both stateside and worldwide. Trump saw the deal as a way of bringing Israel back into the fold amidst cratering support. And as he proudly explained it on Fox News on Wednesday.
It's brought the whole world together. It's amazing. I've never seen anything. It's so good for Israel. I spoke to Bibi Netanyahu just a little while ago. He called. He said, I can't believe it. He said, everybody's liking me now. Meaning him. He said, I said, more importantly, they're loving Israel again. And they really are. I said, Israel cannot fight the world, Bibi. They can't fight the world. And he understands that very well. So it's amazing the way it's all come together, and it's a beautiful picture. It's a lot of talent involved, I'll tell you, but there was a certain degree of luck, too. You know, you need luck also.
None of this is to say that Trump doesn't understand the threat of Hamas or was sanguine about a deal that didn't neuter the terrorist organization. But while conventional wisdom cast Hamas as a military problem, Trump began to see it as a diplomatic one. If he could get Qatar and Egypt and Saudi Arabia and Turkey to take responsibility for Gaza and for getting rid of the threat posed by the terrorist group, then the second imperative of the war, ending Hamas, could be similarly accomplished just by different means. By reframing Hamas not as a military problem of Israel's, but as a diplomatic problem of the Arabs, Trump found a way to align what were the competing imperatives of the war. And when Bibi balked at the terms of the deal, Trump was adamant, take the win. So how did Trump get the Arabs on board? Well, there are 3 rules to Trump's deal making. Ignore the experts, align the interests of the two sides, and play the long game, pivoting when necessary and taking that win whenever you can. In this case, he ignored the conventional wisdom that the conflict is about competing value systems and that what the Muslim countries want more than anything else is an end to Israel. Instead, Trump focused on the fact that the Muslim states in play each wanted something from him. Egypt wanted American military aid and for the Gazans to stay put in Gaza and not flood Sinai. Qatar wanted an apology from Netanyahu for an Israeli airstrike, and Turkey wanted sanctions relief. Most importantly, Trump had convinced the Gulf Arab states in an early trip to the region that he respected them and had their best interests at heart, despite his avowed and unapologetically pro-Israel stance. While bragging about being the most pro-Israel president in American history, Trump courted trillions of dollars in investments to intertwine our economies with those of the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar, and used tariffs to incentivize those investments going to our industrial base. In other words, Trump's economic agenda and his foreign policy agenda are intertwined, something the president himself acknowledged.
The tariffs have brought peace to the world. I'm telling you, they brought peace to the world. And not only here, but with so many other deals. You know, I've made 7 peace deals, at least 5 of the 7 that we've done so far. It was through trade. That we're not going to deal with people that fight. We're not going to deal, and we're going to put tariffs on you. It gives you a tremendous road to peace and the saving of millions of lives.
It was vintage Trump. Why he is the only person who could have pulled this peace deal off, saving the lives of 20 Israeli hostages and probably thousands of Gazans. It's peace through strength, and rather than costing the American taxpayer, it is built on investment in the U.S. This is what a foreign policy designed for the American middle class looks like. A president who ends wars and brings home the bacon in one grand scheme to enrich the American people, economically, diplomatically, and nationally. And he was no bystander. I'm told by sources close to the president that he was deeply involved in setting the parameters of the peace deal. There's only one way to feel in a moment like this: immense pride as Americans at what our president has accomplished for humanity. How can this person not have been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize? Resentment. It's the only answer, the same kind that engulfs the Democrats, equally unable to give him the credit he deserves. Never mind. The Nobel Committee just solidified its irrelevance. Peace, of course, is its own reward. Here to discuss further is Steve Bannon, former White House chief strategist and host of War Room. Steve, welcome so much, and thank you for being here.
So do you have a better understanding after listening to Batya what went down, what the strategy was in the Middle East?
I do, yep.
He as you're going to hear from Bannon here, I think he best explains it, that he took the Middle East out of the hands of politicians and put it into the hands of businessmen. Because politicians will do nothing but war. Because war is money. Plain and simple. And Trump is a businessman and a deal maker. So he thought, okay, what
There's a lot of businessmen in the UAE as well.
What do these people need from me to come to the table? So that's why he went. The very first thing I remember telling you, I don't know if you remember, but I knew that it was important that the first tour that Trump did overseas was to the Middle East, to Saudi Arabia. I made you watch the Saudi prince greet him like
his father,
like he only greets the king, period, because that meant something. He went to United Arab Emirates. He went to Qatar. He needed to get them in line. And what you're going to, or he needed to get them, he needed to tell them, I'm on your side, because Biden on purpose disrespected Saudi Arabia and they wanted nothing to do with America anymore. That was on purpose because he wanted to shift the power to Iran and away from Saudi Arabia.
He wanted to create a destabilization so that there would be war.
Correct. And Steve is going to explain that part to you and how strategic it was that we did bomb Iran when we did and why. And he said it's important to remember the Iranians are Persians. They are not Arabs. Arabs are in Saudi Arabia. Different people. And those are the things that we need to understand. So little by little, this is lesson 1 of geopolitics, that if you listen close, it's going to make sense to you. It's going to make sense, and you're going to see how brilliant and simple this was, because politicians muck everything up on purpose. Listen closely and listen to when Bannon talks about the British or UK or however he says it, because I'm bringing a video to you in a few videos from now from Promethean Update that will explain to you the importance of the understanding of we are where we are now because of the plan of the British. Okay, go ahead.
One of the things before I push play here that I think is very interesting is how silent the left is after this peace deal.
Yeah.
Because not too long ago, less than 6 months ago, they were in the streets.
Free Palestine.
Yep, free Palestine, free Palestine. Okay, well, it's happened.
But they've been able to shift all those free Palestine people over to hating ICE.
Yep.
So they're occupied with now hate ICE.
Well, it's a two-part. They hate ICE, and then they're also hating on Erica Kirk. Those are the two places they are right now.
Yep.
Hating on a widow and hating government officials.
Facts.
Which isn't surprising, because that's about the majority of the playbook, is just hating on everyone that isn't them. So yeah, I've seen a lot of posts about that lately, where people are like, "Where are they? They were out en masse."
Have they said thank you, Mr.
Complaining
President,
about-
for freeing Palestine?
Exactly.
The Palestinians, I brought this to you so you could see the videos as well from Batya, from Gaza. Both sides are praising Donald Trump. Both sides.
Not one or the other, it's both.
But not the American left. Heaven forbid that they do.
It's very sad to me, and I think it's important to point out that our own American people on the left side are more disgruntled and hard to deal with than people of a war-torn country.
Yep.
People who have more than likely lost loved ones, their loved one was captured and held hostage. Our own people who have lived through none of that hate Trump more than anybody in these war-torn countries or one or the other side of this peace deal.
And to see that
when in reality they've probably been wronged more by us than we have as American people. Yet we still have people in this country that cannot admit that Donald Trump did something good by creating peace in the Middle East.
There are murals up in Israel of Donald Trump, and it says Cyrus the Great returns. You look up who Cyrus the Great is. You look at how many thousands, 1,500 years ago when that was. Their memory is long, and there has not been. Cyrus the Great pulled the Israeli people out of the Babylonian captivity. He freed them. They're calling him Cyrus the Great. Look up Cyrus the Great. Look up what they're calling him. They're not calling Bibi that. They know that Bibi is a part of that Babylonian captivity that they've been under, and it took Trump coming in and going, Bibi, I'm bigger than you. Because no other flippin' American president would. They bowed to him and his garbage. And see, Miranda did not even know what a tyrant Bibi Netanyahu is. I've known for a very long time.
And so, to put this in layman's terms, basically, there's been a meme I've seen floating around, and it's different U.S. presidents saying, let's make a peace deal, let's make a peace deal. And the response from that is, nope, I'm going to keep blowing stuff up. I'm going to keep blowing stuff up. Now, they have the ending being Trump saying, I'm going to blow stuff up. And then the opposite side happens. Is, let's make a deal.
Yep.
And I think that that is so important. Yes, it's like
Peace
a watered
through
down
strength.
Yes, it's a watered down version of the truth of what happened, but it's so true because if you do not have the cojones to stand on strength and put your full weight behind it and say, we're making peace or there's gonna be issues.
But he also has that layer of crazy girlfriend.
Right.
If you've ever had a crazy-eyed girlfriend, you're never quite sure
Nope.
if she's gonna do what she says she's gonna do or if she
won't.
doesn't. And you don't want to try her.
Exactly.
And he's got that element as well.
He 100% does. And I think that that is so very important. And I think that any presidents coming after him should take a note about that because no matter what party you come from, you should have that element because if you cannot broker peace through strength, then we are lost. And that is what we have seen for a decade now about.
And I don't know if it's in this video or the next one that you're going to see him in Egypt and you're going to hear what the president of Pakistan has to say about him. These are the things that the propaganda news in United States will not show you. But these are so important. Stay engaged. Don't get distracted. Continue listening because this stuff's important. You need to know this stuff.
Does Bannon ever talk about what happened after the peace deal was made?
Because I've looked at 3 videos about the same, I can't remember for sure.
Well, if Bannon doesn't touch on it, we will bring it up at the end.
Yep.
Batya, I think that is the single best analysis and assessment I have heard in all the words that are out there, all the different channels. Quite brilliant, really brilliant. One thing I just want to add to that, I want to make sure that Jared Kushner and Witkoff get also the due credit there. They are, and I want to go back in time.
Witkoff.
If you look at
Jared
this as a
Kushner.
continuum of President Trump and how he thinks, I think this starts to make more sense. The underpinnings of this are commercial relationships and actually building middle class and working class throughout the world, in this case, in the Middle East. If you go back to our very first trip in May of 2017, of which, by the way, you remember Qatar was kind of odd man out because they wouldn't step forward and really do what UAE, Saudis working with us about terror financing. But the whole underpinning of that was a new dawn to kind of put the politics aside for a second. And let's look at the economic vitality of the region, particularly post.
Before we go further, it's important for you to understand exactly where he is right now. When he says that this is economic and they're focusing on middle class economics in the Middle East. The globalists are the global elites. They do what's best for who? Not the middle class, not the lower class, the elites. And that is what has caused such chaos in the Middle East because all that war is a funneling of money to elites to make them, this is where I agree with those crazy no kings people, billionaires. Stop the billionaires. Well,
right.
I agree with some of that.
Yep.
And
we've
so
talked about that.
The money gets funneled up and funneled up and funneled up. And President Trump says, enough of that. Let's bring a middle class back to the Middle East. We can do that.
Middle class.
And that's why he went to Egypt to talk about that.
And anybody can fight me on this, but I believe that the middle class is the backbone of any country.
Any economist worth his weight will tell you the same thing.
Because if you don't have the working class, you have nothing.
Your country is only as strong as its middle class.
Yep.
So now we'll continue. I needed you to know that where we were.
Oil. You know, what's the region going to do? How's it going to expand? And Israel as a potential technology partner. Then you have the Abraham Accords. Jared's kind of the architect of that for President Trump. The Abraham Accords is essentially not a political deal. It's an economic deal. It tries to integrate the commercial relationships, the jet flights, the capital markets, trade in the region. And I think this is one of the reasons that it never really got, first it was President Trump, obviously, but the diplomatic and kind of political people that write about this don't really understand it. It's more of a business deal the way Jared had always thought of it. Then you cut to the first trip in the spring to the Gulf Emirates, to Saudi Arabia and to Qatar, and also the UAE. All of that was about building commercial relationships between the United States and the Gulf Emirates, but also the potential that we could have peace. And if we had peace, we have broader commercial relations. That is what's underpinning this deal today. It's really that, the Palestinians are not going to leave. There's going to be a massive redevelopment. The Arab nations, the Gulf Emirates, essentially putting up the money. The Turkey and others are going to provide the security. So I think if you look at his commercial relationships, this has a beginning with President Trump and how he thinks, and Jared Kushner, who I think Jared is really the unspoken hero and back President Trump and really working on this. It's quite brilliant. Now, that being said, particularly those of us that have been friends of Israel for many, many decades and have really fought a two-state solution, I think we have to face reality. What's happening in Gaza, I think, is the beginning of the proto-Palestinian or proto-Arab state. The Gulf Emirates are essentially going to finance it. There may be some interim, 200 American troops to do some sort of coordination from CENTCOM, but eventually Turkey and others are going to be there. There's also blocked any more expansion or really the historic claim of Israel on Judea Samaria. That looks like it's going to be blocked. So I think it was a overplay by Netanyahu, and we are where we are, but obviously historic. And I think if you take it from the business perspective, the commercial perspective, he essentially took the power of the hands of the politicians, put it in the hands of the business people.
There it is.
And I think you're going to get peace. What I found most striking today of everything, you had people in the streets dancing. A very moving press conference or press briefing by the IDF, who I think are also been the unspoken heroes here. What they had to go through in this war against the Hamas, or what I call the Muslim Brotherhood fighting brigades. The actual spokesman, I think today, actually broke down in tears talking about, and this shows you how tough they've had this fight and how they are not looking forward to going back in there and doing what they're requested to do. And this is why I think the head of the IDF and Netanyahu came to loggerheads over the last 3 or 4 months. But when the soldiers of the IDF are in back of a deal and they have a spokesman that's in tears, I think that shows you how deep an issue this was, and why both Israeli citizens and the Palestinians in the whole region and the world are celebrating Donald J. Trump. He's the only person that can pull this off.
One of the things that I mentioned in the editorial was how important this was for Trump in terms of restoring Israel to having support, both worldwide and in America. Among young people, support for Israel has really been cratering. I want to play you something the president said about Israel. Let's have SOT 1.
No president in history has been a greater friend of the state of Israel than I have. History has shown us that those who have relations with Israel have thrived, while those who have devoted resources and attention toward the destruction and even annihilation of Israel have languished. They haven't done well. Israel is not going anywhere.
So President Trump has really been at the forefront of making the argument that there's no conflict between being America first and being pro-Israel. He's very proud of his sort of pro-Israel bona fides. There is an emerging split among right-wing influencers on this question. Where do you fall on this? Do you feel that there's a conflict between being America first and being pro-Israel? And is the future GOP a pro-Israel party?
Let me give you a definition. By the way, I think the most important thing that he said to Netanyahu, because let's be blunt, Ron Dermer, Ambassador Dermer, who is a great guy and I know quite well, I'm think very highly of him, and Bibi at the end were not in the room, not in the deal. They really weren't looking for input from it, and that should be the Israeli people and the Jewish people in the United States to really embrace that. What happened at the end of this deal to make it happen? Dermer went to the resort, the Red Sea resort, but really wasn't a big part of the final negotiations. Bibi was not part of the final negotiation. The president told Bibi he can't take on the world. And what he meant by that is that we're not going to be dragged into this as you take on the wall. There's a huge difference between being America first and pro-Israel and being Israel first. And I have been I have a long history of being very pro-Israel, and particularly being a two-state solution, Israel's historic claim to Judea, Samaria, and other aspects of it. But what happened here is you had the commentators and the folks, what I call Israel first, that put Israel, and particularly Netanyahu, not really Israel, put Netanyahu's political situation at the forefront. And I think this came to a head over the Persian, or I say the Iranian situation, which we now know from the Times of Israel and detailed analysis of the War Cabinet meetings. It was 2 years before they got a bomb. This is coming from the War Cabinet as they made a decision on that night. And we kept saying that this was all a sense of urgency that didn't need to be there. I think you start to see a split right there between the America first and what I call the Israel first. And I would tell my Jewish friends, and I would tell people in Israel, I said, under 35 years old, you almost have no support right now, zero support. And a big, huge part of that is, as you know, Batya, you and I have talked about it, this progressive takeover of the universities, which is not anti-Semitic, it is Jew hatred, right? And make it very difficult for Jewish people here in the United States. So we have a massive problem. I gave a speech at NatCon. And in that speech at NatCon, I said, look, if you love Israel, if you support Israel and you support the Jewish people, the problem that we have right now is not in Tehran. The problem you have right now is in the streets of New York, where you have Zorhan, who is a neo-Marxist jihadist with all types of money through his parents. We have no idea where this money's coming from. It's going to be, he's Sadiq Khan on testosterone. And to prove that, what happened on October 7th in the streets of New York, which the mainstream media has not reported, but War Room did, there was a orgy of hatred against Israel and the Jewish people that took place all the evening of October 7th on the second anniversary of the horrific attack. And you saw, I tell you, you saw what New York City is going to turn into. And so if people love Israel, if you support the Jewish people are to start getting focused on what the problem is. The problem is London is coming to New York City. And after November 4th, when Zorhan wins, we're going to have hell to pay. It's going to be an inflection point in American history.
We have much more to talk about. We have to take a short break, but we will be right back after this.
One thing that I want to say before we continue is last night I went down a giant rabbit hole. I was sending you tons of videos. There's this one particular guy on Facebook. I don't remember his name. But he has a lot of videos from around the country, and not only the country, but around the world, where Islamists are literally taking over. Yeah. Look at Dearborn, Michigan. That is terrifying. Yep. Terrifying. They're building a gigantic mosque temple situation, and they have like 6 acres just dedicated to their stuff.
And do you know who Sadiq Khan is? You heard him say that name.
I do not.
That is the mayor of London. London is as it is today because Sadiq Khan has been mayor for so long. So London under Sadiq Khan is going to be just like Zorhan Mamdani in New York City. So it is going to look the same.
The other place that is having,
he's 87% chance of winning as of today with Kelshi.
The other place that is also concerning is Minneapolis.
Oh,
they've
terrible.
Changed their city ordinances to allow the call to prayer to be played at any time of the day.
Oh yeah, and not 5 times, because they did get one taken away because it's not after 10 o'clock, but it starts again at 6 in the morning. So they did get one taken away.
Some that I've seen are saying that there's one that plays at 3 a.m.
What?
And I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't had the time to deep dive on that, but I've been seeing.
The good news is the feds are breaking a whole lot of stuff up in Minneapolis.
Well, they're in Minneapolis now. There's a lot of ICE happening in Minneapolis, which is great. And I think it's important to realize, who was it that we were watching, that it was Glenn Beck explaining that the true terrifying thing that is happening right now is none of this.
No.
And is everything to do with...
It's something that's called the Red-Green Alliance. What does that mean? Red is communism. Green is jihad Islamicists. You get the Islamicists connecting with the commies. And that's what we're seeing happen on the streets in America right now.
There was a video I watched, and if I can find it, I will put it in here and you can watch it. And this video is of a man on a beach here in the US who is explaining that they are coming, meaning Islamists are coming, and that...
Oh, you sent that to me. I watched that.
It's terrifying, and that we had better be ready to be paying taxes for not being Muslim, to be under communist control because they're bringing communism with them, and
Red-Green Alliance.
Yep, and that we better prepare because it's coming, because they're already here.
And remember, in that video, he talked about Marxism, even though he said communism, because the reason when people say, well, where has communism ever worked out well in the world? They know that. Therefore, they have done a marriage with Marxism and taken a little bit of the Islamicism with them as well.
Oh, and he also speaks about Sharia law being put in place.
Yeah.
That is one of the things that they are very excited to instate in all of the U.S. is Sharia law. If you don't know what Sharia law is, it's pretty terrifying.
Look it up.
You can, as a woman, you can be beaten for any reason. They don't care whether you're married or not. You can be stoned in the streets for any offense that they deem.
They can look up Sharia law if they want.
I mean, it is an absolutely terrifying thought, and it would change literally everything. And we are quickly approaching that. And I don't think the majority of American people understand that, because I didn't understand the gravity of it until last night.
That's why exactly. And that's why I'm bringing these longer educational ones to you, asking you to stay engaged. And if you have questions, type them, ask them.
Put them in the comments if you don't want to put them in the comments.
A lot of content, but stay engaged, even if you have to listen more than once, even if you have to listen in chunks. This stuff is so necessary, but we'll hit the final bunch of Steve Bannon here.
You can ask questions in the comments. If you don't feel comfortable with that, you can either email us or you can message us separately. If you're on Facebook, you can send us a PM.
Welcome back to the show. Back with us is Steve Bannon, former White House chief strategist and host of War Room. Steve, you more than anybody expanded the definition of what it means to be a Republican, who could belong to the MAGA movement. I myself, of course, was very much the beneficiary of that. You made it clear that this could be a home for Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Jewish Americans, Democrats, gay Americans, pro-choice people. I guess my question to you is, are there limits? Are there people who you would say, you are not part of this movement, you are not welcome here?
Well, I think, and it's kind of, I don't determine that, but I think it's this whole movement's kind of self-organizing. I think that people are attracted to it, see certain common values. As you know, Batya, we have a lot of Democrats, particularly younger Democrats, I think are looking for a home. I think particularly as the Democratic Party escalates goes up the escalatory ladder in violence, I think we're even going to get more people. I think from the last election, you saw working class African Americans and Hispanics, and particularly a lot of men, because of the anti-male agenda or the toxic masculinity as purported by the Democratic Party. It's kind of self-organizing. I think, listen, so far, I think we've done great. I think the President Trump movement. Now, I would say my only difference in what you just said, I'm not so sure they're in the Republican Party. I think they vote for President Trump. They're MAGA, and they identify MAGA as President Trump. And this is why I am adamant in working on Trump 28. Someone like President Trump comes along once every 100 years. We've had General Washington, we've had at the birth of the nation, we've had President Lincoln at the rebirth of the nation, and we've had President Trump at the rejuvenation and reclaiming the nation. And so I think we have not solved. We're still the low propensity voter party. When we win, we turn out low propensity voters, and particularly people who are what I call low information voters. Not that they're not smart, they're just not that engaged in politics, right? But they see in a message of MAGA and they see in a message of President Trump something that will get them to the polls. And so I would say we're open to all as people is come in, and I don't determine this. Even President Trump doesn't determine it.
So
But
let
we'll
me-
have to see. And there's always going to be skirmishes between people, what I call inter-squad scrimmages all the time. And that's what political parties are made of. But I think as an organic whole, we happen to be growing. And I think in the Democratic Party.
So, just like you went down a rabbit hole last night, I went down a rabbit hole a few weeks ago. I was researching, and I don't remember exactly what I was researching, but I was researching something about the beginnings of a lot of this stuff in the 60s. And I came across a name, and it was Rear Admiral U.S. Navy Chester Ward. So I started seeing, because he had said something that made sense. So I started digging and found that he wrote a book called The Betrayers. And a little bit about it is Phyllis Schlafly this is 1968. Phyllis Schlafly wrote this one and self-published it in 64, A Choice, Not an Echo. And so it's like, okay, I'm going to look up that lady, but I wanted this book. So I got it today. I find the originals online because you know me, I don't want anything that, as you can see, the yellow pages take a smell. So I'm going to read Not Sick, but Betrayed. I'm going to read you just a little bit of the beginning of this book. I can't wait to totally consume this book because I about died. I'm telling you right now. So strap in. Not sick, but betrayed. It became clear, this was in copyright 1968. It became clear beyond further concealment by the summer of 68 that America has been betrayed. Betrayed indeed on so many fronts with such a synchronized time schedule that it is no longer possible to believe that all of our weaknesses in the face of internal and external threats are the result of accident or coincidence. The only open question is whether the interwoven fabric of betrayal was the work of fools or dupes or traitors or all three groups combined. 1968. United States has been betrayed. So I've referenced this book more than once by Tom O'Neill, Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s. Secret history, to say the least. You'll understand that in a minute when I keep reading. This book was researched by Tom O'Neill for 10 years. I believe he said 10 years. And he has all the receipts of what went down in the 60s. Our cities have become more dangerous than the jungles infested by Viet Cong guerrillas. Serious crime has gone up 88% in 8 years. Each year, it gets worse. 1967 showed a shocking 16% increase over 1966, my birth year. Our parks are wilder than the frontier towns of 150 years ago, for women far more fearful. Our senior citizens have lost their security of person and of savings. Our children are not safe at school football games or the local movie theater. On all sides, we witness a spineless surrender to violence, to riots, looters, arsonists, murderers, rapists, street mobs, university students carrying obscene signs, peace demonstrators, pornographers, revolutionaries, and blackmailers. Sounds like 2025, don't you think?
It does indeed.
History repeats itself by design. What you're seeing today with this color revolution has been by design and has been tried before. In the 60s, the 60s were tumultuous on purpose. On purpose. Remember that. It didn't just happen. All of the assassinations of the 60s, well, Charlie Kirk assassination. You don't even, I'll bet you don't even know the amount of assassinations that have happened across the world in the last 3 years of people that wanted to be their country first, or they've been imprisoned. She didn't even know who Shinzo Abe was. You probably don't know who Shinzo Abe is. Let me continue. Imran Khan. That's not here. Imran Khan. Have you heard of Imran Khan? Do you know Imran Khan? Look him up. Imran Khan. Khan. Look him up. You'll find he's in prison. You'll be shocked. They haven't assassinated him. They were successful in imprisoning him. They were not successful in imprisoning Trump. The president's own commission admitted that the domestic crisis in our land is the most alarming since the Civil War. Our economic system and our savings are on the skids because of galloping inflation. In mid-1968, the annual rate was 6%, the gold drain, and the highest interest rates in a half a century. Highest interest rates in half a century. That's the Fed, the Federal Reserve. We're going to talk all about that. I need to educate you on that as well. They play a part. In 1960, John F. Kennedy campaigned against the alleged decline in our image abroad. So we had a decline in our image abroad. In 1968, after 8 years of the present administration, our image abroad is the lowest in our history. The capture of the Pueblo by North Korea on January 23, 1968, is the worst humiliation our nation has ever suffered. It was an act of naked piracy, such as the United States did not tolerate even when we were a new and tiny country huddled along the Atlantic coast. Have you heard about the capturing of the Pueblo?
No.
Neither have I, and I know history. I had to look it up. It was a ship, an American ship in international waters that was captured by North Korea, along with 82 of our people that were kidnapped and held there in North Korea in 1968. I knew nothing about this. And they weren't there for just a minute either.
News to me.
I had to look that one up. The Pueblo was not seized by a great naval power, but by a fifth-rate puppet of the Soviet Union, which is what North Korea is. The response of the Johnson-Humphrey administration for 7 months was to crawl to the communists with abject appeals to them to accept our apologies and even keep the ship and its valuable equipment if only the crew could be released. Meanwhile, the 82 crewmen languished in a communist prison, insulted before the world. I looked it up. They kept our ship, and it's in a museum in North Korea. And all we did as the United States was to crawl and say, we're sorry that that it was a spy ship that was in international waters. Sorry.
That's wild.
We weren't America. We weren't America. I'm shocked at this.
But I don't think that it's that shocking considering how Biden pulled us out of Afghanistan.
That's the same thing that came to my mind.
So
here.
It's like, yeah,
same thing.
when you have a
LBJ all over
president,
again.
it doesn't really surprise you, does it?
No.
Because they're not going to have strength when it comes to protecting our people, especially when those people are sent into these other places by their command.
And what else
You are the
happened?
one giving the order, and you don't even have the balls to protect the people that you send abroad.
More abroad. August 28th, 1968. That happened in January. Then August, the U.S. ambassador to Guatemala was machine gunned to death by Cuban-backed communists. The chauffeur reported the gory details. He was lying on the ground and still moving, so they shot him some more times with pistols until he died.
That's horrible.
He is the first American ambassador in our history to be assassinated, not since the days of the Roman Empire, when respect for the person of ambassadors was imposed upon even the most retarded of barbarians. That is the word they used. Has the ambassador of a great nation been treated so savagely? They gunned down our ambassador because they knew they could. Why? Because North Korea had our ship and our people. That's why.
And we didn't do anything about it except for cower.
This is only the latest humiliating harassment inflicted upon the United States by the communist dictator of Cuba, who had 5 U.S. planes hijacked and flown to Havana at pistol point. American citizens are no longer safe from Castro when flying in American planes over American soil. I did know about those 5 hijacked planes.
I knew about that as well.
So I had been taught that. Who's to blame for the state of our own nation? Everywhere, people are beating their breasts and saying society is sick with crime, confusion, complacency, and a lack of compassion. When a criminal is apprehended, we are told he is not to blame. Huh? Sound familiar? It is the fault of a selfish and insensitive society.
Sounds
Notice
like
how they
present day.
Right? So they were able to turn it around after the 60s because it wasn't like this in the 80s. So they were able to pull it out. Well, Reagan was able to pull it out. Reagan saved us for a bit, and then it just twisted and went sideways again.
Who made it twist and go sideways? When did it happen?
George H.W. Bush, the guy right after him. That was the beginning. He was the head of the CIA back in the 60s and 70s.
So here's my question. We talked about this in a previous video. I'm not sure if that was one that got posted or not, because I think it was one that had bad audio. But it resonates with exactly what I said in that video as well, where history just continues to repeat itself.
Yes.
So at what point, how do we put safeguards in place that we don't end up back here in 50 years, 60 years down the road?
That's what Trump's doing, and you're going to see that in the next 2 videos that we do, Miranda. And the reason that I'm doing these videos is because I know where you are feeling right now, where you are right now. And I want all of you to come along as I let her know where we are.
Because truly,
With a plus.
it feels like...
You're feeling hopeless.
Yeah, it feels hopeless. It feels like, oh, it's great now, but then Trump's out of office and then we're just screwed again.
Nope. You're going to see. You're going to see. Just give me 2 more videos. 2 more videos. So, again, if we pulled it out from the 60s and the 60s sounded just like today, the only way that it sticks is if the whole system gets uprooted and tossed and switched. What does that mean? You're going to have to see that Promethean update video to understand what that means. We'll get there.
That'll be in the next one.
2 from now.
2 from now.
So, everywhere people are saying sick, blah, 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 to blame. When arsonists burn our cities, what? We are told by the Kerner report, which I looked up, that the real culprit is white racism.
Oh, that's what they're telling us now, too.
And the wrongs of 100 years ago, slavery.
Yep.
When corruption in government is exposed, we are told we should blame the apathy of the voters. It's fashionable to excuse national mistakes by saying that we are at fault. To avoid charges of partisan politics or witch hunting, speakers are supposed to diffuse responsibility by saying that we failed at the Bay of Pigs. We let the North Koreans capture the Pueblo, and we have made mistakes in Vietnam. Remember, 68 was still in the height of the Vietnam War.
Here's the other thing, too, that I think is important to point out. History repeating itself means that there has to be some sort of structure
that's
to
making
this,
it happen.
because it doesn't just happen organically.
Exactly. This book proves that what's happening now, when I tell you that what's happening now is done on purpose, a book from 1968 is telling you what was happening on the streets of 1968. And if that echoes what's happening today, that's all the proof that you need that this is all done on purpose.
But then what would you say to the person that would oppose you and say, or it just proves that what they're saying is true and that we're just all terrible people?
Then how did we get the 80s? How did we get the 90s? How did we get the 2000s? If we're all if white racism is a thing, then how did Winsome Sears, who is a black woman, get elected lieutenant governor of the state of Virginia, which the state of Virginia, for all of you that remember or know your history, had the Confederate capital. So a black woman that is still in a state that is majority white gets elected to that office. How do we get 2 black Supreme Court justices currently sitting on the courts? Why do we have in predominantly black constituents of Byron Donalds in Florida and Wesley can't remember his full name, in Texas, representative that comes from a predominantly white district as well, yet they are voted in. And then now Byron Donalds is running for to be the governor of Florida, and he is currently in almost a double-digit lead. Mm-hmm. How if we're living in such a horribly racist country? And we can go back to, remember, we had our first black representatives in U.S. Congress in the late 1800s, early 1900s. That all got stomped out under which president?
Who?
You don't even have to guess.
Trump?
Stomped out the black ones? Oh, no more black ones.
Oh, your favorite.
My favorite. Woodrow Wilson.
There we go.
Made sure
I misunderstood the question.
Yeah.
My brain was elsewhere.
So that's where a lot of that goes. Let's call a halt to this passion to pass the buck to society or to the American people as a whole. Guilt is not collective. Guilt is personal. The cringing appeasement of our government in dealing with the communists, whether in Moscow or Paris or Cuba. Notice Paris, communists. Has anybody ever talked to you about the communists in Paris? Nope. Or North Korea or Vietnam is not the fault of society or circumstance. It is specifically and personally the fault of the officials who have misrepresented us. The American people are tired of having all the ills and defeats blamed on the poor, long-suffering citizens. Sounds like today.
Yep.
The parents, the taxpayers, the overwhelming majority of Americans are God-fearing, law-abiding, honest, and generous. The record proves that we have been warm-hearted and open-handed to the less fortunate at home and abroad. And that's just the beginning of that book. This one, I bought it when it said a choice, not an echo. Why? A choice, not an echo, is a clear, concise statement of the issues of the 1964 presidential campaign, including the hidden issues within the Republican Party. It gives a fascinating inside account of the Republican National Convention since 1936. It is full of authentic details never before assembled. It answers questions of who really picks your presidential candidates. How are your political conventions stolen? We've had them stolen in North Dakota, FYI, just in the last few years. Who are the secret kingmakers? How do hidden persuaders and propaganda gimmicks influence politics? So we had propaganda way back then. Let's not forget that. Will the Republicans win in 1964? They did not. There was a huge campaign to make sure that it was never Barry Goldwater. And now that I know as much as I know, I wish that my mom was alive, because remember when her and I went back and forth about something having to do with Republican and Democrat,
Yep.
she said her big comeback to me was, well, I voted for Barry
Goldwater.
Goldwater. And it's like, so that means nothing to me. That means everything to me now, because that means mom was a rebel back in 1964.
Facts.
And I want to know
It's in our blood, man.
What caused her to vote for Barry Goldwater?
Here's the thing that I wanted to say. Two things, actually. So where my brain was when you were asking me questions about who president this, that, was also that we've had a black president. So
right? Hello.
If we were such a racist country, especially considering that the black
population
community
is only 13%
is not
of
enough
America.
to elect him solely, that it would have to be also white and other people of color voting for him.
Yep.
That proves that we are not a racist country in and of itself.
Supposedly.
And the other thing that I wanted to say from a while back is that Bannon talks about how the MAGA movement is open to anybody. Like it, and I think that's the basis of what we really need to remember, is that this isn't a movement of you have to believe everything that everybody else believes, and that if you don't, you can't be a part of it. I think it's
you have to love your country.
You have to love your country.
You have to want America to thrive above all else. America first, and American policy first, American thriving first, and American citizens first.
If those things are things that you believe in, the rest is the rest.
The rest is the rest. You sort it out later.
We are allowed as people to have differing opinions. Crazy fact, I know.
Do you know who Scott Bessent is?
I've heard the name.
He is probably the best U.S. Treasury director that his name's going to be on printed money, because he's the head of our treasury.
Okay.
He also is gay, and he's married to his husband, and they have children. Did you know that? No, because nobody cares.
Literally.
He's Republican, and Trump wanted him. Plain and simple. And that's just one.
It has nothing to do with any of that, and everything to do with if you truly love your country. And if you love your country, it doesn't matter what your affiliation is as far as party. You can be a Democratic MAGA movement enjoyer. Like, that's not something so crazy. Like, I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that besides Bannon explaining, like, you can be that, and your principles only need to be that you love your country.
Yep. And you're willing to fight for the success of America. And what's that look like? I'm going to be bringing, like I said, we're going to have some heavy videos coming up.
Yeah.
That these people, I've curated 3 or 4 really good videos to catch you up in an understanding that took me years. And I'm trying to catch you up, because it's like, how do I get everybody to understand geopolitics?
I don't.
Jump in. You will.
I will.
These next 3 videos. your whole understanding of the world you live in is going to change.
And I'm fine
and
with
it's going
that.
to change for you too.
So yeah, I think that's basically where we leave it, is just because you're maybe not a Republican or registered Republican doesn't mean that you can't be MAGA.
Nope.
You can be gay, you can be Jewish, you can be whatever. It doesn't matter. What matters is if you love your country.
Yep.
And we'll leave you with that, and I'll grab a quick Bible verse here. We'll let God have the last say, and we'll wrap this extremely long video up.
It was worth it, though.
It was very worth it. All right. So we'll go over here. Oh, we're in the book of Job. And it's the introduction. So I can't do the introduction. So what I'm going to do is just
go to the next
page. And about where I pointed was here, so we'll just pick that page, which is chapter 2. And the heading of this is Satan tests Job again. And it says, when the day came for the heavenly beings to appear before the Lord again, Satan was there among them. The Lord asked him, where have you been? Satan answered, I have been walking here and there, roaming around the earth. Did you notice my servant Job? The Lord asked. There is no one on the earth as faithful and good as he is. He worships me and is careful not to do anything evil. You persuaded me to let you attack him for no reason at all, but Job is still as faithful as ever. Satan replied, a person will give up everything in order to stay alive, but now suppose you hurt his body. He will curse you to your face. So the Lord said to Satan, all right, he is in your power, but you are not to kill him. Then Satan left the Lord's presence and made sores break out all over Job's body. Job went and sat by the garbage dump and took a piece of broken pottery to scrape his sores.
My children
His
know
wife
that well.
said to him, you are still as faithful as ever, aren't you? Why don't you curse God and die? Job answered, you are talking nonsense. When God sends us something good, we welcome it. How can we complain when he sends us trouble? Even in all his suffering, Job said nothing against God. And that was all the way through 10, 1 through 10.
That is a very powerful word from God.
Amen.
Things to think about there. My translation when I've studied Job was God said to Satan, consider my servant Job. Satan was gonna go mess with somebody else. But God said, hey, how about Job? He served Job up to Satan. Think about that once. His faithful servant, he served up to have all that happened to him happen. And when he was sitting and with the sores all over his body and the sores on the bottoms of his feet, he took a piece of broken pottery and scraped the soles of his feet off with that. And that's something that I reminded my children when they were young, when they wanted to complain about something.
It's not fair. Oh, it's not fair. And then we were told the Job scraping his feet story. So.
You know what's really not fair? Having to go sit on the curb with some piece of pottery scraping the soles of your feet off. That's not fair. So when you get there, let's talk. Yeah,
and that's called #perspective.
I was that mom. So Job, then his wife, who was supposed to be his helpmate, says,
why don't you just curse God and die?
Why don't you just curse God and die?
Sheesh.
Boy, that's a lot of help. So if you've never read the book of Job, read it once.
Yeah.
You'll find that you're not going to complain so flippin' much.
It's true.
And God will serve up his servants
and
that he trusts because he trusts them.
One of the things that I want to say here that I was realizing as I was reading through that and we're talking is so often we as Christians believe that, oh, if I'm just a good enough servant to God, I'll be protected and that you won't have bad things come your way. You believe that it's a way to like broker peace in your life with God, that he'll just protect you from everything that Satan's got for you. However,
That's prosperity gospel.
That
We
is,
don't believe in that.
That is not the case, because
No.
Job is a very clear representation of how God sends his hardest battles to his strongest soldiers.
Amen.
And I think it's very important. Michael Knowles just said this last night as we were watching his video, is that suffering is, what word did he use?
I can't remember.
Basically, that suffering is beautiful. Like, it's a way to grow in your faith, and that suffering is not something that, did he say suffering is righteous? No. Man, I can't remember the exact quote.
You can look it up and pop it in.
I will look it up and pop it in. But he basically was explaining, like, we should suffer with grace, and that it is a blessing to be allowed those things, because it shows that you are a servant that God trusts for those battles.
And if the Lord brought Job to us as we are talking about geopolitics and where we're moving forward, that's his cue that you're going to need to toughen up, Buttercup, because there's some suffering that is going to be moving forward. But remember that Job endured all of it, and after he endured all of it, everything, all of his land, his family, his wife,
his kids, all of his
doubled.
kids.
Yeah, everybody died. Everything was taken from him. All of his animals got sick and died. His land was gone, taken from him. His wife croaked or left him. I can't remember for sure, so don't quote me. And he lost everything. And at the end of the day, when he did not succumb to Satan and all that Satan threw at him, God gave him back everything twofold. So just know there's suffering possibly ahead.
Yep.
How you gonna withstand it?
And that's a lot of what you see with the abortion argument as well, is, well, the child's going to suffer in poverty anyway. Well, suffering isn't a reason to end someone's life.
No.
Because suffering is a part of human existence.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone, I don't care who you are, at some point or another, you have suffered something.
But the society has infused for the last probably 3 decades that we should never suffer. Never suffer. And as a parent, if your child ever has to suffer, you're the worst parent in the world for that.
And that's just simply not true.
It's not. It's not. Because I have endured suffering. And here I am, not bitter, alive, my children alive, and I'm stronger because of it.
So I think that's
good place to end.
A good place to end. God says his last word, and that's it.
Till tomorrow.
Till the next one.
Bye.
Bye.